So today I had a mental breakdown, and that is mental breakdowns are good. It is so good, I think, sometimes to get it out, have those good crying moments, have those goods or whatever, but sometimes they become too much. Sometimes I feel like I can become overconsumed in my emotions, and I don't know what to say. Okay, so this is literally like my 10th time filming this. These video podcasts, guys, I'm telling you guys, this is me showing how much I love you guys, because audios were so much easier. But today, I had a mental breakdown, and it was not fun. It was not fun. Now, as you guys know, I am a huge crier. I've said it on here probably a million times. Like, I cry all the time. I literally cry all the time. Like, I'm just a crier. But there are times, like today, where it seems like the crying is not gonna stop. Like, the crying is just endless. And I cried all day today. I literally cried from like 5 to like 8 o'clock. I cried this morning. I've just been crying today. And my family's like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Like, it's not them, but they're all like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Oh my God, what's wrong? And every time I feel like I try to explain it to them, it feels like I'm talking to like a brick wall. Like, everything I'm saying is just getting bounced back to me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get on literally my life and talk about this. I have a sister, as you guys all know, who lives with me and who struggles with mental health herself. But her condition, sorry, we have to add these in because I'm hungry. Her condition kind of, I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to talk about my home life, but her condition makes her so unbearable sometimes. And that's just the way I feel. I'm not saying people with her condition are unlovable, but it's hard to deal with her sometimes. It's really hard to deal with her. And yesterday was one of those days. Now, she pulled a scheme like she always does, and she did yesterday, and it freaked me out, and I had a whole panic attack, and I cried, and I fell asleep crying on the phone to my dad, and I was just crying the whole day. The whole night, and then I woke up today crying, and then I cried again. And it was just so much crying. And then I went to therapy, and I cried there. So it was just there was so much crying. I'm like sick of crying. I don't think I'll ever cry again. I've cried so much today. But the biggest thing for me today that concerned me was this feeling of helplessness. That was the biggest thing that concerned me today. I was sitting right here in my room. I was talking to my therapist on that bed, and I was crying. I was like, I do not feel like myself. I feel trapped. I feel like I'm drowning, and I have not felt like this since my sophomore year. And I don't know about you guys, but I went through the worst sophomore slump, and I do not plan on feeling like that again, okay? And I was like telling my therapist that I was like, I feel the same way I did my sophomore year. I feel helpless. I feel like I'm drowning. I feel anxious. I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed, and it was so hard for me. And my therapist was like, this looks like it's a little beyond you. This looks, and that's what you have to acknowledge sometimes. Sometimes you're like, you know what? I need help. And we're going to get to that later. But that's what I learned today. I was like, you know what? I'm glad I'm asking for it because I really do need help. And so it's normal. I want to emphasize that. It is so normal to have bad days and to experience breakdowns. It is so normal. And it is also so normal to ask for help with your mental health. That is like one of the biggest things I wanted to do when I started literally my life. Like, I wanted to talk about the stigma around mental health and emotional vulnerability and talk about how we have to break it. I don't understand why it's taboo to, I feel like it's not taboo to, talk about, sex and, your most personal sexual stories, but it's taboo to talk about your mental health. It'll never make sense to me. I think that there should not be a taboo around mental health, and that there should not be a stigma around emotional vulnerability, and that we should encourage people to get the help that they need. And I would so much rather anyone, even if I hate your guts, I would so much rather anyone talk to me about their mental struggles, or say hey, Alex, I feel like I'm gonna commit suicide, or I just feel really down and depressed about myself, or this, that, and the third, and me help them through that, than them to commit suicide. As much as I have struggled with suicidal thoughts in the past, I think suicide is the most sad tragedy there ever was. I really, really do. I think suicide is a crime of loneliness. I think it's a crime of sadness. And it's so awful every time we see, like, right now on TikTok, there's a beautiful young girl, 13 years old. I think her name is Aubrey Wyatt. And she took her own life in September, I believe. And feel free to correct me about that. She took her own life in September after being bullied by about like 4 girls in her middle school, and she took her own life. And her mom's been speaking about her story on TikTok, and there's been so much going on with that case, and it makes me sad. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, we're finally getting justice for Aubrey, and they're bullying her bullies. It's just like a lot going on. But the thing that makes me the saddest about that case is that a 13-year-old girl is dead. Like, she had no idea. She never got to go to high school. She never got to learn how to drive a car. She never got to get married. She never got to do any of those beautiful things, and it makes me so sad. Like, she's way too young to know that it gets better. And she took her own life in a moment of sadness, in a moment of loneliness. And she took her own life, and she's missed out on the opportunity to see things get better. And that is so sad. And that, I think, sums up suicide, or at least how I feel about suicide. It's taking away the opportunity to see if things will get better. And that's why we should break the stigma around mental health, to prevent suicide. Absolutely. Okay, I literally ate so many of these watermelon gummies. I had to sit down for 15 minutes. I think I got sick off of those cheap gas station snacks. Okay, now I want to talk about the importance of taking a mental health day, because you have to recognize that need. So I think there are certain signs, at least for me, that you might need a mental health day. So for me, it's usually persistent fatigue, emotional outbursts, feeling overwhelmed, no motivation, just stuff like that. Those are usually the symptoms for me that I'm overstimulated to the max, and I need a day to recharge, and I need a mental health day. And everybody should take one. Now, I decided to take a mental health day today because I am going insane. And when I say that, I mean it. I'm not even trying to be dramatic. I am literally going insane. And I needed a mental health day. And there's nothing wrong with that. And even though it didn't really work today, mental health days can usually help reset and recharge and give you that energy that you need to be your lovely, beautiful self again. Because we all have our off days. We all have moments where we just don't feel like ourselves. And that's how I've been feeling lately. Lately, I don't feel like Alex. I don't feel like the girl who can go through anything and come out stronger. I don't feel like the girl who is stronger than anything. I don't feel invincible. I don't feel happy. I'm just not feeling like myself. And I'm going through life kind of half-assing it, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to reset and I want to recharge. And I think it is great to give yourself time to rest and reflect. And it is productive to rest. But I have a whole episode written about that, okay? So if you are feeling like you are just not yourself, like you're feeling in the downs, you're just not like yourself, you need a mental health day. And there's nothing wrong with taking that. Legally in the state of Illinois, fun fact, if you guys don't live in Illinois, it sucks for you. CPS kids, and I think the whole state of Illinois, is allowed 5 mental health days a year, which is not nearly enough, but 5 mental health days a year. And take one. Even if you're in school, take a mental health day. Take a day to not wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning like I used to do and rush out of bed and get on the train in the freezing cold weather to go to a school that you hate. Don't do that to yourself. Sorry, I'm reflecting. But take a day to take care of yourself. Take a nice bubble bath. Watch good TV. Order I'm a Postmates girl, but some people are DoorDash people. Postmates is cheaper. Order some Postmates. Watch Real Housewives. I literally have Real Housewives of Atlanta in the background. They're in Miami if I can move my head out the way and you can see. Watch your favorite show. Live your best life. Which you will after you take a mental health day. Okay, now I want to talk about how I coped with my mental breakdown today. Now, honestly, if I'm being 100% vulnerable and 100% honest, I don't have the best coping mechanisms. I've never talked about this on the podcast, but I've definitely struggled with self-harm before, and if I'm being honest, I'm struggling with it again. And I'm struggling with getting clean again. I was clean for 4 years, recently broke the streak, but that's okay. I'm gonna be back on the same track. I feel like God, going off track a little bit, but I feel like God knows what you need, because in between takes sometimes, because it takes me so long to film these, I go on my For You page, right? And so as soon as I go on my For You page, I see these beautiful testimonies by these beautiful God-fearing women, and they just tell their stories. Like, there was just this girl right here who was just telling her story about how God got her through, like, these awful, like, the awful ages of, like, 13 to 21, because she went through, like, thing after thing after thing, and I needed that, because that's me right now. I'm going through thing after thing after thing after thing. In March, I was cyberbullied so bad by a girl who I thought was my friend, who hated my guts over a guy, and I was cyberbullied so bad I tried to, commit suicide. And then when that didn't work and that got better, then my parents got into a fight, and it literally ruined my birthday. It broke me into two. I went through so much, and I tried to commit again, and it also didn't work because I'm here again. But I'm happy I'm here. That sounded awful. I'm happy that I'm here. Even when the thought comes through my head, like, maybe I shouldn't be here, maybe I should be dead, maybe this, that, and the third, I always remember how life is beautiful and how I do have the time. I always try to appreciate those beautiful moments where I'm not struggling, when I'm at the beach and I see the sunset, when I'm with my best friend and I see how happy she is with her boyfriend, when I'm reading a good book, when I have a good day. Like, I always try to appreciate that I'm still here, that those 2 attempts did not work. Like, I'm not trying to get all minister on y'all, but I feel the Holy Ghost in this room. I'm not playing. And then as soon as I start to recover from this cyberbullying, as soon as I start to get over my old boyfriend, as soon as I start to deal with my parents' aftermath, now my sister gonna move back in? What? And it's just too much. It's too much. A person can only take so much. And I have been through so much this year. I've been through so much in the last, my high school years have been through so much. I've transferred high schools. I've been going through being picked on over a guy. I went through getting sick and almost dying. I've been cyberbullied in recovery about being sick. I've been through so much. And it's so it's normal for you to have a breakdown at one point, because I've been through so much, and that's what I'm starting to recognize. Like, I'm starting to give myself that self-compassion, that self-grace. Like, you know what I mean? It's normal. Like, and it's hard for me to give myself that compassion. It's hard for me to do it because I'm usually a lot harder on myself than I am with other people. But I have to stop. I can't bully myself forever. Like, I was just talking about this, I think, in a couple of episodes ago. Like, I just decided one day I was beautiful. Like, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life hating myself. I'm not going to spend the rest of life harming myself. And the biggest thing I learned today is that I don't want to spend the rest of my life here. Let me turn my fan up. I don't want to spend the rest of my life taking things out of myself, harming myself, just doing things, talking to myself all kinds of crazy ways because of stuff going on in my environment. I don't want to do that. I want to find better coping mechanisms, and I want to be better with myself. So I'm practicing self-kindness. I'm practicing avoiding self-criticism. I'm working really, really hard, and I'm really, really proud of myself. And it's hard to do it, and one of the best ways for me is to share affirmations and for positive self-talk. I talked about this a couple of episodes ago. I think it was the Hot Girl Summer episode, where I talked about how I look in the mirror almost every day and I compliment myself. Or even if I'm in a situation that I think I handled it well, I compliment myself. Even if I do a good job on a test, even if it's something small, like I got my order right, I just pat myself on the back. I'm like, you know what? Good job, Alex. I have to congratulate myself more or reward myself more, because I feel like I'm so hard on myself. Now, the techniques that helped me today, when I was in therapy, my therapist made me take those deep breaths where, I hope you guys can hear me because I'm going to put the mic on the floor. I put 2 hands on my chest like this, and I close my eyes, and I just imagine the silence around the room. And that really calmed me down. And then she had me describe to her 2 things I could see. And I used to think those things were stupid, those techniques were stupid. But it helped me today, because it helps you center, it helps you focus, it helps ground you. Because all you can think about are the thoughts racing through your head and everything going on. And those techniques really help. So deep breathing, journaling, taking a walk, going for a run, watching a TV show, just distracting yourself a little bit, or just helping you decompress, because you don't want to be so overstimulated or go through so much that it just continues to get worse, when you're in that state to the point where you're about to harm yourself, because that I don't want. So I encourage you, if you're going through a mental breakdown like I was today, to find what works best for you that is not harmful to yourself. And that's really me talking to me. So today, I think, what was that voice crack? But today, I think I made a very important step in this journey of like me dealing with my mental health, and it was me asking for help. Now, I feel like there's a lot of, and it's extremely common, like fear and hesitation when it comes to asking for help with our mental health. And there's a big stigma around it. There's a big stigma that it makes you look weak, it makes you look stupid, or it makes you look like you can't handle it on your own, and none of that's true. You are not less of a person. If anything, I feel like you're a strong person for asking for help. You can't do everything on your own. You can't build a house on your own. If you wanted to build a house, like if you bought a piece of land and you wanted to build a beautiful big house, would you sit there and figure out how to build a house on your own? No one would do that. You would hire, construction workers to come help you build your home. You would hire plumbers to put plumbing in your home. You know what I mean? Like you would hire Stanley Steamers to come clean your carpets and install them and everything. You wouldn't do it all on your own. So think of your mental health kind of like your dream home. You can't build your dream home by yourself. Like that's almost impossible nowadays. So you can't fix your mental health if you're going through some kind of crisis without asking for help. Now, asking for help looks different for all types of people. It may be just asking your parents to put you in therapy, or maybe talking to a friend about suicidal thoughts, or maybe it's even, and there's nothing wrong with this, going to the hospital for a 72-hour hold. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. Today, I reached out to my therapist for help. I told them how I have been struggling with self-harm again, how I've been struggling with suicidal thoughts again, how I'm struggling on the inside, and how it made a difference because it made me feel like I wasn't alone. Like, I feel like ignored most of the time. I feel neglected. I feel like nobody's listening. And it made me feel so much better asking for help because it made a difference, because somebody is listening. Somebody is listening. And there's so many different types of support available. And that's what we're going to talk about now, finding support. Now, I'm a big advocate for calling the hotline, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 988. All you have to do is dial the numbers 988. And there is a trained mental health professional who will talk you through your feelings, help you find counseling centers in your city. It's a national hotline. And it is amazing. It really is. And I've called the hotline before, so I strongly recommend you ask them to help you find free counseling sources within your area. They have a lot of counseling sources that are fit for your needs, like whether you're going through grief, depression, you're dealing with sexual assault. There's an And okay, so today asking for help was hard because obviously like I said, there's a stigma around it, but I did it and I'm really glad that I did. And so I want to talk a little bit about how to ask for help and like what to say. So I recommend the first thing you need to do is you need to talk to somebody that you trust, whether that, for me, it was a mental health professional. For me, it was my therapist, but for you, it may look different. For you, maybe your mother, your father, your grandmother, your best friend, the hotline, whatever. And I basically said what I was feeling, which was I feel overwhelmed, I feel helpless, I feel like I'm drowning, and I need help. This is beyond me, and I'm having thoughts, I'm harming again, I'm going back into those unhealthy behaviors and using those unhealthy coping mechanisms, and I know it's not going to lead me down a good path, and it's only going to get worse, and I need help. And even though it was hard, and even though I'm going to have to do some stuff I don't want to do, it was the right decision because I would so much rather, and I feel like you'll feel like this too once you get the help that you need, I would still so much rather go to the hospital for 72 hours or do whatever to get that help that I need and that I deserve, because I am a loving person and I deserve to have a loving, long, beautiful life, than to end it so suddenly and like I was talking about with Aubrey Wright, and not have the opportunity to see things get better, because I was going through a moment of weakness and or going through a moment of loneliness, rather, not weakness at all, a moment of loneliness, a moment of sadness, and I was able to get through it by asking for help. And I just want to emphasize that enough. If you do not get anything from this podcast today, I hope that is what you get. it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to tell someone that you are struggling mentally and you may need help. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going to the group homes. There's nothing wrong with going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going to a 72-hour hold. Hell, I might have to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's such a stigma around it. But I would much rather there be a stigma in not asking for help than asking for it. I would much rather there be a stigma in being like, well, if you're feeling this way, why didn't you talk to me about it? You know what I mean? Why don't we create a stigma around not providing safe and healthy spaces so that when people do feel this way that they can talk to us about it rather than us talking about it? Let's think about that. So, yes, please ask for help. Please. I'm begging you. I would much, much rather, and I think you would at the end of the day too, ask for help and get the help that you need and deserve than to abruptly hurt yourself or to end your life, because you can't take it out on yourself forever. And that's what I'm realizing myself too. You don't deserve to be taking it out on yourself because of your external circumstances. You don't have to deal with it all internally forever. So with long-term mental health maintenance, I really think it takes two things. And I think it is building a support system and healthy habits. Now, it is very important that you have a network of supportive people in your life. And I feel like that's what's been hurting me. I don't have that anymore. I used to be able to turn to my parents and talk to them about everything. And things have changed. Circumstances have changed. And I no longer can run and talk to my mom when I'm having a problem. And even though that hurts, I have to deal with it. And I do have people in my life who I can talk to. I have a therapist who I pay to talk to about my problems. I have a lovely best friend. I have great friends. I have people, even if it's not the people that it used to be, I do have people in my life. And that's what I have to remember. So it is so important to have a network of supportive people who want the best for you and your mental health, that you can run to, that can help you when you're struggling, when you're having days like this. And it is so important to cultivate and to maintain these healthy relationships. And that's why I always say I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to have like a best friend who will drop anything to like answer my calls. And if I told her, and I haven't actually talked to her today, but if I were to call her and tell her everything that's going on, she would literally drive me to be on that 72-hour hold. But that's just because she loves me and because she cares about me. And that's because I maintain a healthy relationship with her, and I maintain healthy, supportive relationships with supportive and healthy people, which is the biggest step. Now, I think it is also important to have like daily practices that support your mental well-being. So for me, it's like regular exercise and praying. And that comes first. And writing poetry. I've written a lot of poems, and I've written a lot of poems about my mental health and how I think it's a spectrum and how I feel, because that's just a release for me. That's just channeling my thoughts into some kind of release for me. And like I said, it's different for everyone. But I think it's also really good, like the stuff you read about depression, it actually works. Like the stuff you read that they're like, oh, eat a better diet and move around more and get some sunshine. You're like, that's so cliche. And then you try and you're like, oh my God, that actually helped. Moving around for me actually really helps. Like I feel like I should have gone on a walk today, but I was past that point. Like getting some sunshine wasn't going to help me today. Okay. But that's what I find beneficial on most days. Working out really helps me. I love working out. And it's not even for like my personal fitness and all of that good stuff. It's literally for my mental health. Working out is good for my mental health. Listening to podcasts, I'm not even kidding, is really good for me. Eating well, like balanced nutritional meals, like not this gummy stuff that I ate today that tastes so awful and literally just made me sick to my stomach. But eating like salmon and like salmon and like green beans, like or just doing stuff for you. Like I take a lot of baths, I get facials, I get my nails done at least twice a week, not twice a week, at least twice every month, bi-monthly. I always try to take care of myself in every way, and that's what you need to do. You have to find some daily practices, some weekly, bi-monthly, annual practices that help with your mental health. Self-care is more than just manicures and bubble baths. It's going to therapy. It's writing those poems. It's taking walks every day. It's drinking green smoothies. It's doing stuff for your mental, emotional being as well as your physical being. And I'm sure you can understand that.